Good evening. My topic is on motorcycle training programs. By show of hands, how many of you have driven by or seen a motorcycle accident before? Yeah, so have I. California is the state with the most registered motorcycles in the U.S. and is also the most populated. And as the number of people increase, so do the risks of motorcycle accidents and the need to guard against them. Nearly anyone you ask who rides will say they have gone down before. I have been riding for years and thankfully I have not. In order to prepare beginning riders for the road, the Motorcycle Safety Foundation, MSF, which I'll be talking a lot about, has contracted a basic rider course since 1974 nationwide. And one must graduate from it before taking the official motorcycle licensing exam. This goes for any state. I have the card that proves that I've completed the course, 2008. It sponsored by Mount Sac. And by this month, the MSF is no longer contracting training courses in California, so there's implementation of a new one run by Lee Parks and his Total Control team. Lee Parks is a professional rider and the author and creator of the very successful Total Control book and riding clinic for beginning and advanced riders nation that is available in select states. So I'm here to tell you tonight that the Total Control program will reduce the amount of motorcycle accidents more than the MSF training course, which is still mandatory in most states. I'll cover two things. One, how it differs as it helps riders on a psychological level, and two, how the MSF course is not enough to survive riding in a real world scenario. The MSF course does not cover the psychological aspect of motorcycling. In the Governor's Highway Safety Association 2012 edition, Dr. James Headland writes that several states suggested that specific motorcycle safety programs may have played a role in decreasing or limiting the increase in motorcyclist accidents. Every motorcyclist is not prepared for the hazards of the road with only basic riding knowledge in which the MSF provides, especially in California traffic. It's more important for a motorcyclist to learn to be a disciplined and simple rider rather than to get filled with the external knowledge of the bike itself. Lee Parks writes in his book, being humble is the key to learning because it is the ego that keeps the minds closed to new ideas. The Total Control curriculum addresses how to overcome fear and keep concentration on the road, as well as maintaining the right attitude. Keeping composure in traffic on a motorcycle is key to overcoming irrational decisions, such as turning to split lanes abruptly. This leads me to my next claim that addresses lane splitting. My second claim is the Motorcycle Safety Foundation rider course is not enough to survive riding in a real-world scenario. The course does not cover lane splitting, which is necessary in California traffic. Lane splitting is, when a motorcycle rides on the lane line in between cars, and lane sharing is when it shares the lane like in a highway situation. California is the only state where lane splitting and lane sharing is legal in, according to the chp.gov website. And actually, as of this month, California is removing all lane splitting guidelines. Nick Harris, a member of the MSF Advisory Committee, was quoted as saying, "The California Motorcyclist Safety Program Committee helped write the guidelines." Lane splitting is still allowed in California. It's just that information about how to do it will have to be learned from somewhere else. The practice of lane splitting prevents rear-end collisions in freeway traffic, where 50% of fatal motorcycle accidents occur, according to the NHTSA. This also requires excellent braking and reaction skills, which are brushed over in the MSF courses, from my experience. The MSF curriculum does not provide riders with sufficient cornering and braking techniques. When I was taking the course, we had only a few tight radius cornering drills and one condition of wide cornering. But if a person dropped their bike just once, they were removed from the course and they couldn't, rather than being encouraged to get up and learn from their mistake. According to Ophir Ramirez Rios, a Total Control training instructor, their curriculum's main focus is on cornering techniques and braking, and which is where most accidents occur. Lastly, the MSF program does not provide dynamic classroom training. This includes bike physics and essential for riding safely. On TotalControlTraining.net, it states that by including a basic analysis of vehicular dynamics, riders get a clear understanding of how their actions affect their bikes. For instance, in the suspension portion of the class, riders learn how to analyze the effectiveness of their suspension and how to set up for maximum control and comfort. This was never part of the MSF curriculum from my experience. In conclusion, I have just told you how the Total Control curriculum will reduce the amount of motorcycle accidents more than the MSF training course. That helps riders on a psychological level and supersedes the MSF course when it comes to surviving riding in a real-world scenario.
All right, Matt, the proposition's very clearly identified at the beginning of the speech. That part's good. Your secondary, I think you did a good job providing some background information in the setup also, and I think that that's helpful. The requirement that they have the Motorcycle Safety Foundation training, and that being fairly universal, I think you could use some documentation on that. I don't doubt that it's true, but like I've said in a couple of other presentations, you need to make sure that you're citing that correctly. The same sort of thing, you did, for instance, cite a piece of information from the California DMV talking about California being the one place where they have lane splitting being legal. So you need to do the same sort of thing for these other statements about the programs. The signpost on your first point was a little bit confusing when you got to that main point. I mean, you did identify that you're on point one, but I think you need to make the claim a little bit more straightforward. The quote that you have makes it sound so Zen-like that it's hard to imagine that anybody would learn anything. To learn, discipline and simplicity. It's the guy's program, whatever his name is, I forget, but it sounds like I'm going to a church sermon a little bit, that sort of thing. And it would be nice if there was some other information on this. One of the things, of course, that's problematic is that this is the person whose program is, in fact, being put into place. So we don't have any independent evaluation of the effectiveness of that program also. One of the things that I think is missing from the argument is some comparative data. I don't know that there is that kind of data out there, but if you're going to make the argument that one program is going to improve the safety and reduce accidents, we've got to have some reason to believe that it's going to be more effective. And the only thing that you give us on that is the kind of this generic philosophy about how you handle the motorcycles, that they have some specific physics kind of training in the classroom, and that they cover the lane splitting issue, which I think, those are probably important issues. However, I think you needed to have a little bit more information about how the frequency of the problems that motorcyclists face have to do, especially in California, with the lane splitting issue. If it's illegal in all the other states, do they have fewer accidents, for instance, in motorcycles per capita or per mile or something like that? And therefore we know that lane splitting is in fact the issue that causes the biggest problem in California, and we need to have something better on that. It's also a little bit confusing that the way the DMV is handling this is by taking out any information about lane splitting from their training programs. And I guess the idea is, well, you'll just have to rely on the program that we're now going to require, and that'll cover it all, but it won't be in any of the materials. That was a little confusing. I'm sure there's a reason why they think that that's going to work, but I didn't get it explained very clearly. You do a nice job, I think, building a little personal credibility, showing your motorcycle card and that kind of thing. I like that. I thought that worked pretty effectively, and you do a nice job speaking to the audience as well. So I think we need a little bit more data on the effectiveness of the one program, especially some independent data that would show these kinds of things. Your explanation, I thought was okay. I understood the point that you were trying to make. All right, thank you.